Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of Vertical Stars Podcast 4th season. How my loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. Enjoy this amazing episode because Peter Jessop boards the mothership. You know him as the Vision on Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes. Now, come on board as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Jessop. Thank you for coming to Vertical Stars Podcast.
Glad to be here.
Totally my pleasure. So, I always start off with a question of inspiration. So, inspire your love for acting and who your earliest influences.
My earliest influence as an actor. Huh. Um, Gosh, that's a really good question. No one's actually ever asked me that one before. I think as far as voice acting goes, I idolized Mel Blanc.
Hmm.
I think anyone in my generation did. And as an adult, a young adult, probably Phil Hartman.
Hmm. It's such an incredible thing. It's when you think about voice acting, um, do you view it as separate from, let's say, live action act?
I really don't. They're both acting. So, but since we're talking about the voice acting I did in an animated series, I'm tending to skew that way. Um, of live action actors, I was a big fan of, gosh, like back in the '70s, maybe. Al Pacino was great back in those days. Marlon Brando, those kind of guys.
You must have loved the Godfather film.
Loved them all. Yes.
I literally just watched Heat with Al Pacino, and that scene with him and De Niro at the restaurant is still one of the greatest moments I think in cinema history.
Yeah.
So for our fans, you played the Vision in Avengers: Earth Mightiest Heroes, which, in my opinion, is one of the best animated series I think ever done. It was so incredibly smart. So how do you get involved with it?
I auditioned like anybody else. And it's funny too. I remember getting the call from my agent. Uh, I was taking my mother-in-law to lunch down in Hollywood at Mel's Diner, of all places, and my phone rang. I'm on the corner, and he said, "I just want to let you know you got cast as the Vision in Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes." And I was stunned because Vision actually, as a comic book reader, had been one of my favorite characters.
That's cool.
So, yeah, I was very excited about that.
Now, Avengers at that point, Earth Mightiest Heroes was in its second season when the Vision came on. Were you
Yeah,
already familiar with the series prior?
I was familiar with the series. The guys at Man of Action who were uh, producing it and directing it had done a bunch of other stuff that I'd been interested in, but I was also an Avengers fan. So I'd watched it because it was also the first straight Marvel, no exterior influence project that they had done. It was
Hmm.
just it wasn't Marvel with Sony. It wasn't Marvel with Fox. It wasn't Marvel with anybody. It was just Marvel. And given the chance to do what they do with their own material, I thought it was fantastic. It was extremely canon. They didn't really jerk around with anything. It was like watching the comic books from the '70s, '80s, and '90s come to life. So,
I mean,
for me,
I think Avengers: Earth Mightiest Heroes is the truest translation of the Marvel characters on TV or film that we've ever seen. I love the Marvel movies. Don't get me wrong, they're fantastic, but I feel like the cartoon did it better.
well, the cartoon was more faithful to the original source material.
Hmm.
They didn't have to adapt it. Um, they didn't have to introduce. Uh, you'll notice there were differences in the lineup of the Avengers and Earth's Mightiest Heroes and the Avengers in the films, um, and that was principally because they wanted to like introduce what's the term I'm looking for? They wanted to expand the range of appeal
Hmm.
for the films. And they knew that people watching Earth's Mightiest Heroes were probably comic book fans who had read the originals and wanted to see it, shown on TV.
And like I said, so much of it was good. Just even the intro was masterful. I must admit, as a nerd, I have it on my iTunes intro to Avengers for the Heroes, and I still listen to it on the way to work.
Yeah.
Do you think the series because there was Earth, Mightiest Heroes, and they did Avengers Assemble. It
Yeah.
was Hulk, Agents of Smash. They did a bunch of after that. Do you think the cartoon gets the appreciation it deserves as being probably one of the hallmarks of superhero or animation?
I don't think it does, no. Um, and I think that was really more of uh, an effect of the fact that once Disney bought Marvel, they had their own ideas about how they wanted to do things. And I think Earth's Mightiest Heroes didn't fit into, their concept of what the Marvel universe was going to look like. If it was going to be animated, they wanted it to appeal more to kids, and so they, sort of youthified it with Avengers Assemble.
Hmm.
Um, it was disappointing to me because, like you said, I came in season two, and Vision in the comic books is a significant part of the Avengers.
Mm.
I mean, he's the leader of the Avengers for quite a while. He starts the West Coast Avengers. He's a major character in the Marvel universe as far as the comic books go. And uh, I think I only recorded about 8 or 9 episodes, and the last three of those were the season two cliffhanger ending and the season three premiere, which got cobbled all together into the big series finale.
Mm.
Um, and I think a lot of the development that they had put into developing the Vision as a character on the show got thrown out the window for the sake of brevity, so they could fit it all into one episode.
And obviously, one thing that I feel the only thing that I feel like Earth Mighty Heroes lacked was the Scarlet Witch Vision relationship. That became a major issue of
Right.
the series, the comic book series. Um, as you said, you're a fan of Vision of the comic books going back when he first appeared. How much input did you have on your interpretation of the character?
I mean, I went in and just sort of did my own thing, and I think that the reason they picked me is because it aligned with their idea of what the character would be like.
Did you? I mean, was there any talk about expanding the Vision with bringing the Scarlet Witch to have that kind of development of that relationship?
They did not talk about any of that stuff with us. We kind of showed up. They gave us the script, a little bit in advance. We got to read through it, and we'd show up as a group, and we would record it. Um, so we did not have a lot of input into how the characters were developed or any of the storylines or any of that sort of thing. I assumed that they were going to introduce Scarlet Witch probably in season three, and hopefully start developing that because that's a major through line in the Avengers.
Hmm.
I mean, that goes on for decades. There's 20 something years of Vision and the Scarlet Witch and their relationship and how it affects the entire team and on and on. Uh, so that was something that I was kind of looking forward to working on, but it never came to pass. So
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say in the world of comic books, I remember there was a very popular Tom King Vision miniseries that had him and Scarlet Witch, and they had the family and all this other the children somehow, and it was such a big deal.
it's called the Visions.
Right.
Oh no, there was a Vision Scarlet Witch series. You're right. That is true as well. But they did a limited series where Vision makes himself an artificial family.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
So
Sorry.
that was also good. Yeah.
So when you're thinking about the Vision, was there particular comic books that you refer back to and said, "This is how I'm going to think about the character based on"? Once again, as you mentioned, he's been around for so many years
I
since
think the Red Skies was a big influence on me, if you remember that one. Um, and if you notice, whenever the Vision talks in the comic books, everyone else gets a voice bubble, and his always had some sort of weird effect around it, as though his voice wasn't normal like everyone else's.
Hmm.
Um, and I always thought that was really cool. So there's something very machine like about the way he talks, and yet it's perfectly normal speech. So
Yeah.
how do you thread that needle? How do you walk that tightrope? And I hope I did it in the show. He hadn't been made British yet, so that was a whole you know uh, subroutine that the MCU came up with.
Now, I would say one thing that I loved about once again Avengers: Earth Mightiest Heroes. We'll get into more specifics, but he is way more badass in the cartoon than he ever was in the films. I mean, Vision is one of the heavy hitters of the entire Marvel universe.
Yeah,
They never quite lived up to it in the live action, but in the cartoon, I mean, he basically, I think he solos, what was it, Thor at one point when he like increases his mass. He's
Yeah.
like, just, I was like, he's a
I'll
badass.
handle the Thunderer is what he says,
Right.
and he does. He knocks him into the Earth's crust, and it's like as though it's nothing. It's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. It's something I just have to do, and so I do it. Yeah, that was in Emperor Stark, I think, when
And
they have
and and another thing that I think you did so great with, and so how do you envision the voice for Vision? Now, was it digitally enhanced the voice, or is that actually you?
to.
Are you?
That's just
I always thought it was like a computer, like somehow they did something to your voice to make it sound like, because it sounds. I mean, it is. You can tell the human element, but it's such a computerish sound to the voice, and that is perfect.
yeah. That was what I was talking about. Threading that needle between making him sound like someone who's actually talking, but also have a sort of a weird machinery kind of a. Uh, I'll tell you the trick if you want to know the trick.
Sure, sure.
Because actually do play a lot of robots and other things as well, or androids. Uh, Perfect diction.
Okay.
They don't know how not to have perfect diction. So when they speak, everything they say is completely defined, is clearly defined.
That is awesome. That is
That's the trick. If you want
now.
a robot, just make sure that your diction is clean.
Now, is that something that you had to learn in preparation for the role, or were you already able to speak with perfect diction?
I No, that's part of being just a voiceover actor. I did a lot of announcer stuff and a lot of commercial announcement and legal disclaimers where you have to talk really fast. So that's something that I had been doing for years at that point as well. But uh, it occurred to me when I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey, because Hal's diction, even though it's speaking like a very normal person, his diction was always perfect.
Okay, that's awesome.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that for you.
That's awesome.
Very clearly enunciated. And I was like, oh, that's really kind of cool. So,
Because, like I said, I honestly, God, always thought it was. See, what I thought it was happening was they put in, they had your voice, but I felt like I thought they put it through like a filter or something to make it that little extra sound because it didn't. It sounded. You could tell they gave it. You could, there's some human esque sound to it,
yeah,
but it just sounds so mechanical on some level as well that I always thought it was through a filter of some sort.
it's actually not. It's just me. The other trick, too, to doing something like that is if you use because it's a microphone trick, it's a voice acting trick. If you use your chest resonance, you can make your voice sound much more projected when you use your chest. But if you do it in a higher register, so if you notice that Vision's voice is up here, but when he speaks, it's very clear, and I'm using the chest resonance in addition to the sinus resonance. It's a very technical kind of a thing, but
Right.
it gives a layer as though it's being broadcast from two different sources,
Oh, that's
and
crazy.
so
That's awesome.
that gives it a little something extra too. So
Is that something also that's natural, or is that a skill that you developed over the time of doing this?
you learn. It's something you can learn. Yeah.
So the
So
other interesting thing about the vision, because once again, even though he has what you think on some level is a very not quite monotone, but it's very straight like dialogue, you still are injecting thought, feeling, emotion into a character that. So it's kind of I'm trying to think of the best way to explain. It's sort of almost like a the Vulcan thing where he
yeah,
has no emotion, but at the same time you've got to put enough in there to for the reader to kind of pick up on it. So
yeah.
how did you walk that tightrope?
Well, again, it's a this is a character who, and the great quote from the movie where he's like, after all, I was born yesterday.
Yeah,
He's new to his sentience, and he's learning about, because I think Vision does have emotions. Obviously, he does. He falls in love with Wanda Maximoff,
yeah.
um, and he is loyal and faithful to his friends. And so I think he's got real emotions. He doesn't understand what they mean,
Mm.
and he's trying to figure that out. It's all a process of him learning. So I think when starting out with a character like that, he's coming at it with a very sort of childlike innocence.
Mm.
Um, and the same thing with humor. I mean, there's a great line, and I don't know if they cut it or not. Um, but it was one of my favorite lines. Hawkeye makes some joke, and he's like, "Ah, you wouldn't get it. You're a machine." And the Vision's response is, "Oh, I get it. I have over 283,000 jokes in my database. I simply did not think yours was funny."
That's cool.
Which is why he didn't laugh at it. He goes, "Well, you didn't laugh because you're a machine." He's like, "No, I just think it was funny." So,
That's awesome.
you know, it's a great sort of insight into the character and how he interacts with the others. And I will tell you this because I know we've talked about this, you and I, that you had Chris Cox and Rick Wasserman on. And when we recorded the show, we did it as a group in a studio. All of our chairs were in a circle. I always got to sit next to James Mathis, who is a gem of a human being, by the way.
Hmm.
And Chris and Rick, between each take, were like Abbott and freaking Costello. These two guys would just keep everybody cracking up throughout the entire session. Didn't matter what the episode was about. It was the Chris and Rick's comedy show. It was great. So I thought I'd inject that because they have been on and they probably didn't tell you how funny they were. So
They didn't. I think the other thing that's kind of interesting. They didn't. I didn't know to even ask that. With those two, I think the other thing that's kind of interesting too is that, as you said, you're recording together. Like I said, I interview Fred. He's doing the Hulk, so he's really, loud, bombastic. Rick with Thor, powerful, very loud.
yeah.
Even Hawkeye's a little bit. Vision is such more subtle than them. Is it? How did you play off each other, knowing that they had to be up here? Was there a temptation to try to match their bombacity with Vision, even though he's not really that character?
No, I knew better than to try and do that. First of all, there's no way you're ever going to match Rick Wasserman in the aha,
Right.
whatever his thing that he was doing was, because it was just freaking brilliant. Um, and I mean, the whole cast was amazing. I mean, they really were. Brian Bloom as Captain America
Hmm.
was just top tier. He really was just the essence of Captain America, um, and everybody. Wally Wingert as Hank Pym, um, Jennifer Hale, all of those, the
Hmm.
whole cast. Colleen was just terrific, and uh, I actually never got to work with Fred on this. I've known Fred and I know him from other things, but we never actually got to work together because I kind of replaced him. They
Hmm.
moved the Hulk out, which the comics did. The Hulk left the Avengers, and they needed another a big strong guy that could do stuff, and so they brought in Vision, the killer robot. So that I do regret that because Fred's a peach. He's a great guy, and
Hmm. And I think the other thing that's really cool about the Vision is that, um, I'm not gonna have the line exactly, but he says it. When he after his like second appearance, when he obviously turns good or realizes he's good, he doesn't quite. I mean, you kind of get what I'm saying with that.
yeah,
He says that he wants to be closer. Sort of like Ultron said, he wants to be perfect, and Vision basically points out that to him, perfection is being closer to humanity, which
right,
is obviously his journey, and it was supposed to be his journey throughout the series.
yeah.
So as he has subsequent appearances on the show, and he's becoming more interacting with humans, did that change how you thought about how you approach the character as the series develops?
Oh yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. If you notice in the first couple of episodes, Vision is very, very stiff. Particularly when he comes in as the villain in Behold the Vision, when he's walking through the walls of Avengers Mansion and beating up Wasp, like a cad,
Yeah.
and that, and as he realizes what these people mean to each other and what it means to be human and that whole speech, um, and they save him.
Hmm.
That's the great thing is it's like they could have just let him burn out and die, but they don't. Captain America's like, no, we got to save this guy. He's on the right path. Uh, and they put him in the med bay or whatever it is, the robot repair bay, and he doesn't come out until Emperor Stark, where everybody's been taken over by the Purple Man.
Hmm.
So in that one, he's really sort of on his own too. The magic of that episode, by the way, is that Vision downloads Jarvis into his positronic brain, to save him from being wiped out because he's an AI.
Yeah.
Order is to get rid of all AIs. And Phil Lamar, who was a fantastic Jarvis, and I got to double our dialogue. So if you watch that episode, you'll hear Phil and me both saying the same lines in the exact same cadence. So sometimes it's a Jarvis line, so Phil would read it first.
Yeah.
I listen and then match his read exactly, and then they layered them over each other.
I didn't realize that at all.
Yeah, so it's actually both of us doing both characters simultaneously as the Vision / Jarvis, and that was the guy's a genius. I mean, he was so spot on. It was beautiful.
I gotta go back and watch that episode. I did not pick up on that. I gotta go back and check that out.
Yeah.
I think that's also and when you're trying to match somebody else's cadence, because does that impact your acting? Because are you thinking more about the cadence than the performance, or are you so used to it that you can just do both?
I I think it's a little bit of both. One of the positives is you don't have to give so much thought to your performance because you're matching the other person's performance.
Hmm.
So you're not really performing it; they've performed it, and you're imitating what they've done. Um, the There's another example of that, and it's from the DC universe that I love when Flash and Lex Luthor switch bodies.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And what they had them do is Michael Rosenbaum would read the Flash line, or would read the uh, the Lex Luthor line, and then Clancy Brown would have to match the read, and then Clancy would read the Flash line, and Michael would have to match him. They didn't overlap like Phil and I did, but it was a great way for them to switch characters, but using their own voices, and I thought that was kind of
And
magic.
that's a great episode. I must admit that's one of my favorite lines in a animation is from that episode where he looks in the takes off the Flash's hood, looks in the mirror, and he's like, "I have no idea who this is." And you're just like,
Yeah, finally, I'm going to see who. I have no
right.
idea who. The other, my other favorite line from that was when Lex Luthor's walking out of the bathroom, and the guy's like, "Aren't you going to wash your hands?" And he says, "No, because I'm evil."
That was
And
awesome.
you hear Michael Rosenbaum doing it, in your brain, but it's Clancy, and so that was great too.
It's
Sorry.
amazing like how some of these anime these series they just do stick in your brain. Like once again, we're talking about the Captain America, and the first thought in my head is the one. It's actually the lines all over YouTube. And when Spider-Man's like, "I'm freaking out. Why are you freaking?" The Captain America. Captain America's like, "Because I hear it, thunder." And he has like the. I mean, they have some of the best scenes ever in that animated series.
Yeah, they did. Yep. No, it was beautifully done, with a lot of love and respect, and the producers and the animators and the writers, all really appreciated the source material.
Hmm.
And a lot of them, like the guys from Man of Action, were all Marvel Comics guys. Are you familiar with them at all?
Yeah, I've interviewed Mr. Casey.
Okay, yeah, and Duncan Rouleau,
Yeah.
and I went to college together, so I've known him for 40 years. Um, so they all worked at Marvel. They all knew Stan. They all had worked with these characters in the past, and so they knew what the show needed to be, and they did it, and it was fabulous.
And I think one of the best things they did again on the Avengers series was the Vision. When you look at the film, the Vision is just good. I mean, he wakes up, he grabs the hammer, you automatically know he's a good guy. He's one of the good guys, and that's the story. The cartoon gives him the chance to make the decision to be good. And I think that's
Yes.
a fundamental importance to that character that they miss in the films.
Well, I don't think they miss it. I think they zip by it really quickly.
Mhm.
Age of Ultron, when Vision flips and becomes, their ally.
Yeah,
That's they're like, what do we do? We trust him? It's still Jarvis. Blah blah blah. Well, that's.
right.
Um, and they changed the basic nature of the character, and
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with it now. I think the thing too is they kill him in the
yeah.
movie, permanent death. They kill Vision in the comic books all the time.
Right.
There's no love for the Vision for whatever reason. He's always getting killed. Oh, he's done. He's gone. And then they bring him back.
Yeah.
Like,
It reminds me of in the world of DC, it's the same thing with the Red Tornado, which is also their android where he's anytime they
it's,
need to show how tough the bad guy is, you kill
yeah,
Red Tornado.
yeah,
That's how you prove it.
yeah. But I think, and this is and he said, yeah, we're hoping this film's going to turn into a series. And I was like, well, great. I'm dead. He
Yeah.
goes, yeah, but this is a comic book. There's dead, and then there's dead. So, but it's like even as much as just a few years ago, when She-Hulk goes berserk and rips the Vision into pieces because Wanda has cursed her because Wanda's gone insane, and I don't know any of the following stuff in the comic books, but and it takes him a couple of years, but he puts himself back together and he comes back out, and it's like but yeah, that's the life of the Vision is you get killed all the time.
Well, like I said, in the animated series, you get the sense that he's way more powerful he's shown anywhere else. And I think that's
Yeah,
really kind of important too, because and when you think about the character who can go intangible, change his mask, he really should be pretty freaking bad. He shouldn't in the movies like Civil War, Captain America Civil War.
yep,
He once he's on that team automatically wins. I know there shouldn't be any like, oh, it's tight. It's like, no, it's not tight. He wins automatically. That team wins.
yeah. No, that should be too. I think they've underserved him, but then again, you can't have uh a like a I don't you'd call those kinds of superheroes like a tier one.
Yeah,
Uh,
the god tier characters.
and it's the same thing with the Flash in the DC universe.
Hmm.
Let's face it, the Flash should be able to beat anyone.
Exactly. I agree.
It doesn't matter because he can do something to them before they can even react.
Right.
He
It,
can
it,
punch a ball so many times that he knocks a hole in it in under a second.
it,
Tough.
it reminded me of an argument I had online, which I don't know why this one always sticks in my memory, but there was an argument I had online with somebody who said they do the thing like with the Flash, could the Flash beat Doctor Strange? I was like, automatically, he's
Yeah,
faster than the thought can process to Doctor Strange's eyes, enter his head, and then react. He's
yeah,
faster than that mode, so he can hit him before he even realizes he's in a fight. That's the fight. There's no, it's not even close.
yeah, yep. And I've done a lot more uh, DC stuff than I've done Marvel.
Yeah.
Vision, the only Marvel thing I've done. I've done some Marvel game stuff as well, but most of my work has been in the DC universe. So I was Superman for a while, um, and was Volko in Flashpoint
Hmm.
Paradox. So I like the difference between the two. In my opinion, a lot of the Marvel animated stuff hasn't lived up to the DC animated stuff,
Hmm.
with the exception of Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Um, and I think it's for the same reason that the DC stuff does so well, is because they're treating it with reverence. They're not trying to make it fun or funny or do whatever. They're trying to tell the story the way the stories were told in the comic books.
And I would say I would argue that the Flashpoint paradox is the height of the DC animated films. I think they did such a terrific job with that one.
I loved it. The production was amazing. Some of the animation, the character designs, I thought were a little weird,
Mm.
but all in all, yeah, they did a great. Well, the graphic novel is brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean, let's face it. It was a fantastic idea, and the whole thing. And then, of course, they tried to do it with live action with the Flash movie.
yeah. Less said about that one. It's probably
Yeah,
better.
I still enjoyed it.
it,
You
it,
know,
it was fun, but I think I don't know my
you got
expectations. Once you
Nicholas
put Michael
Superman.
Keaton, huh?
You got to see Nicolas Cage as Superman.
That part is true. Thing is, I think once Michael Keaton was known to be in the film, my expectations were very high.
Yeah,
And the only issue I had with Michael Keaton was that you could tell he was too old to probably be playing the role at that point.
that was sort of the point,
Yeah,
that he's retired, he's done. And in the animated version, of course, it's Thomas Wayne becomes
yeah,
Batman. And I have a memory from the set, one of the sessions we did for that, because we would come in and we would also do ADR
mm,
for various little different scenes. And I got to do the scene where Thomas Wayne beats the crap out of the mugger and then kills him, and Bruce Wayne has died, and Martha's cradling her dead son,
yeah,
and me and Grey Delisle, and I'm trying to think of who else the other person was in the room, and like I'm getting goosebumps right now just recalling this in my head. And if you remember the scene, um, Martha's cradling dead Bruce, and she's sobbing and she's sobbing and she starts to laugh.
yeah,
She laughs, and then she's like this insane cackle, and then she looks up and she's smeared the blood and it's made the Joker smile, and you realize, oh fuck, she's the Joker. And watching her do that was like, okay, this is a I'm working with a mega star in voiceover and animation. This is why she gets called in to do stuff, because I've never seen anybody do that. It was absolutely breathtaking watching her do that.
no,
I,
no,
I
no.
had to share that story. So
Now, having let's say you back in the day, which is better than now, when you could actually be in the studio watching people do that, which I do think is better than I guess now is mostly like you all do your own thing and they kind of like meld it together. Back in the day,
yeah.
you could actually perform with everybody else, which to me just feels like a better way of doing things. Um,
Well, half of acting is reacting.
right.
And you can't do that if you're not working with the other actors. You can do it in your mind, but is it ever going to be as good? I don't know.
I mean, when you're in that room, like, let's get going back to like Avengers West, as you said, with Rick, with Chris,
Chris and
and everyone else. Does the energy change how you approach something? Like, do you just kind of does it just become kinetic at that point?
oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's doing a read through and doing the actual performance. There's a magical element that gets added.
Mm.
Um, but he's working together and they're focused and they're performing and they're doing their job. And it's yeah.
Do you ever think they'll go back to doing animation that way?
I would like to think so. Um, I hope they do. It's you get a better product, and
Mm.
I know the people that are producing stuff right now don't care about the quality of the product. They care about the volume of the product
Mm.
uh, they can make. Um, but yeah, I would love to see that started up again.
Now, once again, Avengers, like I said, is one of my favorite series. Um, have what has the experience been like being the Vision? Do you find that do you go to conventions? Do you find that people clamor for your Vision autographs more, or
It's funny. I get a lot of, oh my gosh, you're the Vision. Yeah. So that's because they didn't really use him in a lot of the shows. A
yeah?
lot of their Marvel animated stuff. I don't know. Did they use him in Avengers Assemble? Did they have a Vision in that?
I don't think so. I know they had they had they brought in the Falcon. They brought in I think one of the other characters. I think the Vision. I don't think he was in, or if he was, it's was minimal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know
Well,
the Falcon took a lot of that oxygen.
the only one of us that made the transition from Earth's Mightiest Heroes to Avengers Assemble was Fred.
Yeah,
Because who else is going to play Hulk?
that part's true. But
Armin Taylor in Spidey and His Amazing Friends. Armin's a great Hulk too, so I'll give him that. But Fred was the Hulk. I mean, come on.
well, he was
He
doing
was
the Hulk Agents of Smash too at the same time. I
yeah,
mean, he
yeah,
was the Hulk for God. How long is that? Was that 7 or 8 years worth of being Hulk at that point?
yeah, yeah. So it's like Kevin Conroy as Batman.
Right.
Fred's the Hulk. Yeah, there have been other Hulks, but Fred's the Hulk. So
I agree with you 100%. Just like Hamill's the Joker. And
yeah.
I must say I got to meet Kevin Conroy. That was one of the coolest things ever. That guy was legend. Was
Oh
definitely
yeah, yes he was.
when
Yeah, it's funny. I one of my bucket list things was always I wanted to work with Kevin
yeah.
as Batman, and I got to do Escape from Arkham,
Hmm.
and I'm just I'm like the wet works captain. I'm like the one of the fight team kind of guys who comes in and gets in a big fight with Batman. I'm like, cool. I'm going to get in the studio. I'm going to be in there. Kevin's going to be there. We're going to do our big fight scene. And I show up in the studio. I'm like, excellent. Where's Kevin? And they're like, oh, he's in New York. He already recorded his.
Oh,
And I was like, because he had made the announcement that was his last Batman that he was going to do.
oh,
And I was so bummed. And, I had worked with Reno Romano. I did an episode of The Batman, and I worked with Dietrich Bader, both of whom were great Batmen.
mm.
Dietrich did JLA Adventures with me when I was Superman. And I was like, well, okay. So I didn't get to work with Kevin Conroy. And when Justice League Action came out, they'd gotten Jason to take over as Superman. And I was bummed about that because I thought I was going to get to be Superman. And then Kevin came back to do Batman. And I got to do an episode as Steppenwolf. And Kevin was there. And I got to do the scenes. And I was like, okay, at least this is it. I got to work with Kevin as Batman. Check that one off. We're good to go. So
That's also like I mean, I find him to be one of the coolest people. I still, for me, my only real interaction with I got to, at a convention. I remember there was I was at his table, and I remember going to his table. He wasn't there. It was like an empty table. So I'm kind of bummed out. So I'm just like, fuck, like what am I gonna do? I lost the damn autograph. So I started walking away, and he's walking around the corner. He's like, "Are you at my table?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Come back over." So he brings me over. He goes, "Okay, I'm gonna sign the autograph for you, and let's take a picture. We're gonna take a picture together." So I got a picture with me and him. He does it free of charge. Everyone else is charging, free of charge. And I'm just like, this is one of the coolest fucking guys I ever got to meet in my entire
oh yeah,
life.
no, he was great. He was the best, and basically recreated the character of Batman.
Mm,
You know, you had the Adam West in the '60s, which was kind of goofy. You had Keaton in the '80s, and then everybody that followed him doing their Keaton impersonations. And Kevin in the '90s when Batman the Animated Series came out, and I watched that show. I
mm,
mean, I tuned in because you had to tune in. I tuned in regularly to watch that because it was so well done.
yeah.
And the line between Bruce Wayne and Batman and they were two completely different characters, and he did them both beautifully. And yeah, and of course, Bruce Timm's concept, the whole look and feel of the show was brilliant too. So
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say Conroy did the best job of most people who do Batman in making it clear why someone could think that Bruce Wayne wasn't Batman. I mean, the voice was different enough. He gave that little higher pitch with Bruce Wayne.
yeah,
And you're like, all right, these do seem like two different people.
but he also wasn't angry Batman.
Mm,
And the thing that a lot of the movie actors have missed, they're like, I'm Batman, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I'm Batman. And it's like, okay, I don't want to fuck with this guy. But he's not being loud. He's not being obnoxious or even forceful. It's just straight, matter of fact. Yeah.
and I think that's one thing that I think is very interesting from a performance standpoint is that proof as well as the vision is proof that you didn't have to overact to make your
Yeah.
character seem powerful. And in many ways, you could almost underplay it slightly, and that had a stronger effect.
Yeah. No, I agree with you entirely. I think I probably incorporated that idea into my performance's vision.
Because when you think about it, when you're the vision, you don't have to like convince anyone that you're the toughest person in the room. You just are the toughest person in the room. I mean, he knew it.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's the same thing. And I think, I didn't really get to explore Superman very much because we only ended up doing the one episode that they made into a movie. But uh, it's the same sort of thing. It's about restraint,
Yeah.
you know.
So going back a little bit to the Avengers, I know there was you said they had some idea of the season three. Did they ever talk to you about what the plan was for that season?
No, 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 we never did find out. And in fact, we didn't know they weren't doing it. Uh, the release of season two was pushed back, if you remember. And there's a thing that studios do um, when they don't want a show to succeed.
Hmm.
Did it with Avatar: The Last Airbender in the final season of that. They did it with Legend of Korra. after the first couple of seasons is they would start to put it on at different times on different days.
Like Firefly.
One week it would be on at 3 o'clock on Saturday. And the next week it would be on at 5 o'clock on Sunday. And then the week after that, it would be on at 1 o'clock on Saturday or at 6 a.m. on Saturday. And it's like you never knew when it was going to be on. And they're like, well, look, the numbers are terrible. Nobody's watching it. And it's like because they don't know when it's airing
Right.
because you screwed around with it so much on purpose to make it fail.
Mhm.
And I think that was part of their rationale when they like, okay, well, and also it took them an extra year because they had to redraw Thor and Iron Man because the movies had come out.
Mm.
And so they had to make the costumes match the movies.
Mm.
So they had to redraw all of Thor and all of Iron Man to match the movie costumes.
Oh, I didn't know that. I don't know. I don't think I've ever even noticed.
And that was why there was a huge delay in season 2 coming out. And when it finally did come out, because we recorded it, when did it air even? But there was like a 2 year gap between season 1 and season 2, and that was the reason for it.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and then they dicked around with the scheduling, and the numbers were bad. And like, well, we're gonna reboot it and make it more kid friendly.
Yeah.
And Avengers Assemble came out, and I mean the whole point was it's like when Justice League Unlimited came out after Justice League, and they started introducing all of the cool, more obscure DC characters.
Mm.
That's what they were starting to do with Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Because if you recall in the final episode, which was going to be 3 episodes, they bring in Spider-Man again, and they bring in Power Man and Iron Fist, and they
Yep.
bring in the Falcon, and they bring in all of these other characters that had not been involved in the show. And I had thought they were going to start using more of them, in subsequent episodes in season 3, but we never did find out.
I mean, I think it has so much potential. And like I said, I think in the world of animation, Earth Minus Heroes is definitely a top tier cartoon. Honestly, the best of all time, I still think is Batman animated series, as you mentioned. That one is probably the top tier. But Earth Minus Heroes can be spoken the same breath as the Timverse cartoons that had come out in the 90s, in my opinion.
I think so too. No, and like I said, for the same reason, is they treated the source material with respect,
Mm.
and they treated the audience with respect. You
And
know, they people who read comic books aren't necessarily 12-year-olds. It's everybody's reading them.
right. And they like I said they were true to the characters. And even as an adult, like I said, I rewatched the cartoons perhaps more than I should, but as an older man, but still, I enjoyed the hell out of them because, like I said,
Yeah,
the writing is smart. I mean, they have constraints of making an animated series. They still have constraints of making it so a kid can understand it, but
yeah,
there's still such layer, and such quality to the writing. The voice acting's fantastic that you really, I think as an adult, there's nothing wrong with being like, that's a good fucking show.
yep.
Yeah.
No, it was a great show. And I didn't even mention Eric Loomis as Iron Man.
Mm.
Was fantastic,
Yep.
absolutely fantastic. Um, yeah, just that whole cast was great. It really was.
So what's next for you?
I really can't say.
Okay.
NDAs are the new thing, so we sign a lot of those. But there's some stuff that's going to be coming out fairly soon. And when is this going to broadcast?
Probably within 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks. May 3rd, I'm doing a Streamly signing if it comes out before May 3rd.
Oh,
Uh,
very cool.
yeah, me and the original cast of Resident Evil, the four of us. I don't know if you're a video game guy or not, but um, I did Resident Evil back in 2002. I was Albert Wesker.
Yeah.
Me, Joe White, who was Chris Redfield, Heidi Anderson, who was um, Jill Valentine, and Hope Levy, who was Rebecca Chambers. And the four of us are going to get together at the Streamly Studios and do a live signing at noon on May 3rd. So people who are watching this, log on to Streamly, get your pre-orders in, or just come and join us live and order online. We're going to be signing our Resident Evil characters, and actually you can order anything else you want from me too. So
Well, that's also, and like I said, when you're ready to talk, you can talk about the other things. Come right on back. And if I
yeah,
can ever somehow get a panel of you guys from Avengers, Earth Mightiest Heroes, that'd be badass too. That's something I may have to work on one of these days. But well, thank you, Mr. Jessup. You've been absolutely awesome, and it's great talking Avengers with you.
it has been great talking to you too.
Very nice
Thanks.
there.